you very much. I'm really thrilled to be standing here as the building and the construction finishes up, and one can begin to feel really the importance of building something that is for students, for scholars, for education. I wanted to share with you just a few thoughts about what underlies really the work of architects. You know, the great modernist architects, what inspired them? What did Le Corbusier have in front of him when he was thinking about building? In front of him was a model of an airplane, and he thought of cities from the point of view of bombers and airplanes. That's what he was inspired with machines of war. What did Mies van der Rohe, the great German architect, have in front of him? He had an empty desk, and he had the book of Thomas Aquinas in front of him. A really spiritual sense of the emptiness and the fullness of space. What did Alvar Aalto, the Finnish architect, have in front of him? He had a cube of marble from the Parthenon. He was inspired by the Greeks. Well, what is in front of me? What is on my desk? On my desk is the memory of the history of drawing of architects, because I believe that architecture comes from drawing. You know, I never really worked in an architect's office. I didn't work on building sites. I came to architecture through drawing. Now, I didn't have clients, so I didn't draw fantasy buildings. I didn't draw imaginary buildings to be built in the future. I drew structures of architecture without a client, really without a budget, without a social context. But I believed that in the exploration of drawing lies a path into architecture, just the way that exploration of music lies in playing music. And by the way, I didn't start my life as an architect. I started my life as a musician. But the drawings that you're sometimes seeing on the screen are drawings that explore architecture also from a musical perspective, from the musical structure of spaces, of proportions, of light, of how buildings really, complex as they are, bring together life. And by the way, these drawings that you're seeing now are in an exhibition in New York at the Museum of Modern Art on the relationship between art, architecture, and music. And of course, that is really part of developing a sense of space, a sense of the complexity and the great value of what architecture does in the world. Now, architecture is part of the plastic arts. As I said, it's part of music. It's also a scientific art because you need a knowledge of mathematics and of physics to build even a small column. And you need to also create machinery. And I created machinery in my own way many years ago, where I won the Lion of Venice at the Venice Biennale with machines that were recommended, by the way, by the oldest text in architecture, Vitruvius, who recommended that architects should themselves build machines. Now, I didn't build airplanes, I didn't build computers, but I built memories of reading, memories of writing, memories of thinking about how architecture has acted across the space of history and what does it do in our time in terms of its meaning. And we know that we live in a world that has so much intolerance, that has so many problems politically. How does one bring all the different senses of the spirit of culture into architecture? Of course, architecture is made from concrete and from glass, has to be sustainable, has to uphold itself, has to create the space for people who will really be creative in it. But ultimately, it is also a historical fact. It takes part in what has happened. How have we come to this point, and how do we get into new horizons, not into the end space of, you know, the Soviets or the end space of the Nazis, but into new sense of an open, democratic, tolerant society. And how do we create buildings that have a variety, that don't simply fulfill some sort of abstract normalization, norm, because there is really no norm. Everybody has a heart, everybody has a sense of uniqueness, and everybody shares the same world. We are all in this world. And by the way, there are many skeptics today, many skeptics, including some of the greatest scientists today. You know, Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest, you know, he occupies the Newton chair at Cambridge, suggests that the world has no future. He suggests that our only way in architecture and in planning of the world is to go to other planets. He said we have really you know, we're finished with the Earth. The Earth has no future. We better find space in outer space. Well, I'm not a believer in that. I believe that really we have to rediscover this Earth on which we are all together, on which we live, and on which we have to share. And what I want to say towards the end, that through my drawings, through what I have attempted to do, I've come to this conclusion, that we live in a world that has a lot of tensions. We see so much intolerance. We see genocides. We see anti-Islam rallies in this country. We see anti-Semitism. And yet, what is a building? A building is to bring people together, to give them a chance to discover something through a window that is maybe slightly different in terms of its horizon and what it shows than the window in the kind of norm that only brings a convention to the fore. And so I'm a great believer that this building, built for students, built for young people, built for people of the city, built for people from different walks of life, from scientists to young people to children to people who come here and listen to concerts and exhibitions, and in his everyday life will offer something. And of course, you say it's not a box. It's not something predictable. But look, we are living in a world which is much more complex than the box that we have been put into. And those great thinkers, whether it was Le Corbusier, whether it was Alvar Aalto, whether it was Mies van der Rohe, thought about the box a lot. They thought about the fact that our spiritual sense of life, can never be fitted into a box. It can, of course, be fitted into a volume of space, but that volume has to correspond to many things which are not very obvious. And those things which are not obvious, of course, dawn upon you a little bit later as you use your desk, as you put on the light, as you look out of the window, and as you open the door. So that's what architecture is. And once, one of the simplest things in the world, one of the most banal, one of the most regular, and one of the most simple, to build something into the earth that stands on the earth, that is stable, and that takes care of the sky. But the other aspect of architecture is the spirit that says, no, we are not immigrating to other planets. We have to rethink, recreate the world that we have so abused and create a world where people of different faiths, of different beliefs, of different ideas can come together and share something in an unexpected and uplifting way. Thank you so much.